Adonai roi lo echzak bino tesheyarbitzeni al mei menuchot yenahaleni nafshi yeshovev yancheni b'maglei tzedek yancheni b'maglei tzedek leman shemo gam ki elech begeitz al mavet lo irara ki ata imadi shivtecha umishantecha hema yenachamuni taroch lefanai shulchan neged tzorerai nishanta vashemen roshi kosi revaya ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai veshavti beveit Adonai leorech yamim Adonai rohi lo echzak. A song of David. The one who was, the one who is, the one who will be is my shepherd. There's nothing we shall lack. On days like today, surrounded by green grass, our hearts and our souls should be still like the stillness of calm waters. All of it should stir our souls. Our path should be a path of justice and righteousness, because that's what it means to be a divine servant. That even when we find ourselves in times like this, times of darkness, in the shadow of death, we shouldn't fear anything, because we know that we're surrounded by the divine, that we're surrounded by a loving and supportive family and community. With God's staff, God shepherds us and brings us comfort, provides us with abundance of food, of gifts, of flowers, of hugs, of support, anointing our heads with oil. Only goodness and loving kindness should follow us all the days of our lives. And we should be blessed to dwell in God's house forever. Over the last number of weeks, and just a few days ago, I was standing outside and talking to Nancy over these past few challenging weeks, difficult weeks, as Leonard was approaching his final days. And we talked on 2 occasions about what it means to pray for refuah shlema, for complete healing. There are times when we hope and we know that a refuah shlema, complete healing, means that we'll be restored to perfect health. And there are times when we know that our ultimate peace is going to come when we leave this world and pass on to the next. As we gather today to accompany Leonard to his final resting place, we pray for that peace. We pray that he be restored to wholeness. We pray that his soul always be bound up with our own as we continue in this world and he continues on to the next. Rachem av al banim, rachem Adonai al yire'av. As the Father has compassion for his children, God has compassion for those who show reverence. For the one knows how we are fashioned, remembers that we are dust. The days of mortals are like grass, we flourish as the flowers of the field. A wind passes over us and we are no more. No one can recognize where they grew, but God's compassion is everlasting. God's kindness to children's children, to all who stand in awe, endure age after age, unchanging. There are many pressures involved in living. Sometimes there are even greater pressures in dying. The responsibility of caregiving is all-consuming and exhausting. For the caregiver to crave relief is a longing as ancient as the book of Psalms itself. And so we read, Miksea aretz elecha ekra, v'atof libi b'tzur yarum mimeni t'nacheni. From the end of the earth I call to you when my heart is faint. You lead me to a rock that is high above me. I said, oh, that I had the wings of a dove, I would fly away and find rest. Lo, I would flee far off, I would lodge in the wilderness, I would soon find refuge. Refuge from the sweeping wind, from the tempest. The sweeping wind has blown its last. The tempest is no more. Now is the time for refuge and solace, for lodging in the wilderness. For those of us blessed with having witnessed the care that one human being, one son, one daughter, beloved grandchildren can show one another, we know that that wilderness does not last forever. Pain and sorrow may challenge our faith, but the courage to persevere in the face of adversity is an absolute miracle. As long as there is compassion in the human heart and the will to act on a virtue both human and divine, there's reason to believe. As we accompany Leonard to his final resting place, as we hold the soul of Yehuda ben Betzalel Verivka in our hearts and minds at this moment, we also hold our mourners, Nancy and Rob, Micah, Noah and Avi, and David and Jody and Mason and Brandon, Leonard's siblings, Michelle and Leslie. Among all of us who stand here today with warm memories in our hearts, with love and support for dear friends, and the recognition of the importance of that mitzvah, not only accompanying Leonard to his final resting place, but supporting our mourners. And in support of our mourners, we'll have the opportunity now to hear some words from Leonard's daughter, Nancy, on behalf of the entire family.
Thank you all for coming today. Nobody was like our dad. If you knew him or heard any of us speak of him, you knew. He had a special quality about him. And by quality, I mean a curmudgeon-y edge about him. Daddy definitely left his mark on those he met, and not everyone understood his sarcastic sense of humor, but you could always count on it. Even up until the end, as recently as the last few days, he said things in the hospice house that, although slightly offensive, made us and the nurses laugh. Our dad was a lifelong Clevelander. He loved the city and all the opportunities she offered. He loved summer art festivals and music festivals, the orchestra Blossom, and the Indians. although he wasn't a hiker, and one might even say he didn't even really like to walk that much, especially in the last 10 years. He loved all the outdoor venues around Cleveland. The Cleveland Metro Park Zoo and Holden Arboretum were some of his favorites. With our dad, what you saw was what you got. He was not a complicated man. He lived by some very simple rules. Ketchup does not belong in the refrigerator or on a hot dog if you are over 5 years old. When you leave a room, you turn the lights off. His constant dad joke was to yell down the basement stairs, "Who's downstairs?" even though he knew nobody was down there. Refill the ice cube tray when it's empty. Hamburger on a plate for dinner was a meal. Buns are reserved for weekends and special occasions. If 6 people or less are sitting at the table, only one person is allowed up to clear the dishes. If more than 6, 2 people can get up to clear the plates. That rule was created from all the days he sat with Grandpa Muddy, just the 2 of them, staring at each other at Grandma Irma's dinner table when everyone else went to clear the kitchen dishes. Grandma, of course, never really ever sat down. And lastly, you don't really ever have to wear underwear pants, even if it's a special occasion. We've had that underwear fight many times. My dad could watch the local news 5 or more times a day, even though it was the same story over and over. A big shout out to Betsy Kling, if she's listening. And spend the entire day sitting on the porch reading the paper, listening to music, watching the birds in the bird feeder. He loved that porch. That was one of the things he was most sad about giving up when he left his house. When we were kids, life was very simple. Daddy left for work every weekday morning at 5:30 a.m., took the rapid downtown for his job with the IRS, and came home the same way every day at 5:30. I remember watching for him walk down the street, down Stower, every day at 5:30. He came in, he changed his clothes, took a 30-minute nap, and we ate dinner as a family around the round table in the kitchen every single night at 6:30. David and I played outside with the neighbors until the streetlights came on, or in the basement. We made up our own games, we talked and laughed around the dinner table, played Rummy Cube, or watched TV. Daddy loved shows like Hill Street Blues and St. Elsewhere. On weekends, we took trips to the zoo or the park. He taught us to ride bikes, took us to hockey practice and ice skating lessons. We spent many summer days at the Thornton Pool where, and I'm not kidding when I tell you this, we drove to the pool with all the windows closed just so that we would be really hot when we got there and ready to jump in the pool. And inevitably when we got there, it would be rest period. He wasn't the dad to help you with your homework, but he was around for all the other stuff. He was David's Cub Scout pack leader, and he was the highlight of every Stower Road block party when he stood on the roof and threw the candy to the neighborhood kids. In the early 80s, they tore down the Manners Big Boy on the corner of Lawrenceville and Cedar Road. It was a big deal in Shaker because they were going to put a Wendy's in. It was the first fast food restaurant in Shaker. My dad thought that was great. He loved that they had a salad bar, baked potatoes, and hamburgers, and that we could walk there from our house. So we had a surprise 40th birthday party for him at that Wendy's. It was also at that same birthday party that Grandma Ruthie gave him a banjo, and he started taking banjo lessons with Kevin Richards. He wasn't a cheap man, but he was frugal. David and I never felt like we were poor, but we certainly never felt rich. We drove to every vacation. We camped out, we slept in tents, and cooked our food over fires. I didn't fly on an airplane or sleep in a hotel room until much later in life, and I spent most of my birthdays until I was 18 at a campsite or a lodge. But I can make a mean campfire and farmer's breakfast, which is useful for every Zimmerman Ure camping trip that we've taken. If my dad were here right now, I think he would say he was proudest and most fulfilled by three things in his life. First, that he was able to quit a 2-pack-a-day smoking habit in the mid-'80s, thanks to a smoking cessation program offered through his work. If you were around my house during that time, and many of you were, you remember a giant bowl of Nicorette wrappers in the living room, a constant reminder to him that he was doing something good for himself and his future. Secondly, that Barbara Greenfield fell in love with him and agreed to marry him after he relentlessly pursued her when they were students at the Ohio State University. For those of you that knew her, my mom was the best, the absolute best. Kind, caring, compassionate, creative. She took care of everyone and made you feel like you were the most important person in the room. My dad knew he won the lottery. It was recently that I was told that my mom understood how much my dad loved her by the way he cared for her when she was sick. My parents married right after my mom graduated from Ohio State in June of 1966 and moved into the Ellicott apartments with many other young couples. My mom taught art at the Bedford schools while my dad went to law school at Cleveland Marshall. In the summer of '71, before David was born, they bought the house on Stower and Shaker. Lastly, I think my dad was most proud of the people his children became, who they married, and especially his 5 amazing grandsons. Let's be honest, it's really about his grandsons. Oh, and Rob. Although he was not great at showing it, I know that his biggest pride and joy was all 5 of them, Micah, Noah, Avi, Mason, and Brandon. Grandpa truly loved you and will always be proud of you. He filled his house with pictures of his family, talked to his friends about his grandchildren and their accomplishments, and loved coming to dinner to hang out with us. Almost every year for the last 15 years, Grandpa Leo has treated us to a winter vacation, usually somewhere warm and all-inclusive where the kids can play in the sand and the water, where there are shows, and Grandpa Leo could park himself on a lounge chair and watch his grandchildren enjoy themselves. He even made the best of it when we got stuck on the highway in Alaska for 11 hours, missed our flight home, and had to stay in Anchorage for an extra few days. Leonard Lurie, the son of Ruthie and Charlie, lived almost his entire adult life in the same house in Shaker Heights. He raised 2 children there, lost his wife, volunteered, went to the movies, sat on the porch, watched the news, went to festival after festival after festival. He loved animals, especially dogs, and bluegrass and folk music, and found companionship in a good friend, Janet, who we will always forever be indebted to for caring to him as much as you did. Daddy, Grandpa Leo, rest well. It's been a long journey. Who's downstairs?
I had the opportunity yesterday to spend some time with Nancy and David. Rob was there too. And they told me lots of stories about their father and father-in-law. That underwear thing never came up. And so many questions. I'll ask them later. Nancy, your words were perfect.
That's why I get paid the big bucks.
They were perfect because they tell a story of a father, of a grandfather who took completely ordinary things and made them special, made them holy, made them into memories that you and your brother and your family will hold in your hearts and minds for an eternity. The more you tell about them, the more you speak of them, the more generations, God willing, that will know the legacy of Leonard Lurie. I was learning some Torah from a teacher earlier this morning about this week's Torah portion, Ki Tisa, which continues talking about all of the implements, all of the kelim, all of the tools that were being made by the artisans of the Mishkan. One of those artisans, of course, Bitzalel, the name of your grandfather, Leonard's father's name. And my teacher was teaching about how when we're remodeling a home, it's not really special yet. When you have all those workers coming in and out and touching everything and getting dust all over the place, it's messy. It doesn't feel like yours. It doesn't quite feel sacred in and of itself. What makes it special, what makes it sacred, is that it becomes a mikdash me'at. It becomes a small sanctuary. It becomes a place where whole and wholesome and holy things happen. And that happens after the workers leave. That happens after you wipe up the dust and create a whole new type of dust. That happens through years of living in a house, however small, in rooms, however small, with carpet, however old, and as many doors as some of those rooms had. Over time, we take the ordinary and we make it sacred. There's something about life that begs us to do that, begs us to listen to that inner call of some wood, some carpet, some whatever, and make it holy. To be a Jewish person, to be a person who is thinking and loving and feeling, is to take that which is ordinary, that which is human, that which the workers leave behind, and to speak into it that bit of wholesomeness, of holiness, of goodness, that turns it into a memory. It's so clear from your words, Nancy, that that's what your father did. It's so clear from the stories that you told me yesterday, David, that that's what your father did. May that be his legacy. May that be something each and every one of us take as we leave the graveside in a little bit. That we experience eternity. We know eternity. We are eternal. By looking at the world around us, listening to that call for sanctity, that call for holiness, and making that happen. Finding that which is sacred and sleeping in a tent, that which is sacred and making breakfast over a campfire, that which is sacred and having to get up early, gentlemen, when you're on vacation and have breakfast around the table with your grandfather. Holding on to all those moments. But not just holding on to them, sharing them with anyone who will listen. Through that, the sanctity multiplies, and through that, the soul of Yehuda ben Bitzalel Barivka, of Leonard Lurie, will live on forever and always remain a blessing. Good to know. In just a few moments, we'll fulfill the mitzvah of a chesed shel emet, what our sages call burial, of a true act of love and kindness, of something small that we can do for our loved ones in gratitude and expression of love for all of the love that they provided for us in their lifetime. We do so by blanketing the aron, by blanketing the casket with earth. I'll invite in just a moment our mourners to come forward and to take part in that important mitzvah. And then for everyone else gathered here to do the same. That we rely on our community as the first expression of support and love for our mourners in assisting with this mitzvah, this important task. Shir Lamalo, Tesai Nayalarim, יבוא עזרי מעם אדוני עושה שמיים וארץ. אל ייתן למות רגליך, ינום שומרך, הנה לא ינום ולא יישן, שומר ישראל. אדוני שומרך, אדוני צילך, יד ימינך, ימם השמש לא יכך, וירח בלילה. אדוני ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך. Adonai Yishmor Tzeitecha V'Lecha Me'ata Ve'ad Olam. A song for moments of ascent. We turn our eyes to the mountains. From where will our help come? Our help comes from the one who made the heavens and the earth, the one who will not let our foot give way, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps, the one who's our protection, a guardian at our right hand. By day the sun will not strike us, nor the moon by night. The one who will guard us from all harm and guard our lives. The one who guards our going and coming now and forever. Al Mekomo Yavo V'Shalom. Adonai Natan v'Adonai Lakach Yishem Adonai Mevorach. Others to come forward.
Anyone else who wishes to participate in the mitzvah of Pesach they step forward at this time. Fill the grave. Shovels around this side too.
Told the rabbi to make you do it. He's going to. No, he's not. Make you do what?
Take off the floor.
David?
A lot easier.
I did. No, I want to go face first.
Right off.
Let's handle
She's the one that has children. She's the one that has children. One who is 18 just by a little boy who is 16 years You're still lawyering. And you rejected and I know like 6 weeks. Even though you're going to Phoenix.
Nice to meet you.
Scott? Oh, there's Scott.
Yep. Used to play. What did you play? Bosch?
Heard you're doing the rest. Okay, good.
Okay, good. Yeah, I think early May this game. So, yeah. So, pretty good. You know what? I think they're able to like relax a little bit since being in Florida. So, I think like mentally, she's still testing out, but actually doing okay.
It's like finding
No.
you're related to it.
So I tell her when they ask about something, no words, I'm like, my dad said a lot. Not to say
My friends are my friends used to live in LA.
camp down here.
Yeah. So they left and they left
Hatzor Tamim, the perfect rock,
she finally left.
whose work we perceive. Reveals the faithful God, true, upright, and honest. Here we ask God to account for any deed and shalit, b'mata, b'ma'al. God rules below and on high, causing death and giving life, bringing down to the grave but raising up as well. Hatzor Tamim, dare we question, what have you done? The rock is unfathomable but just and patient, and malei rachamim, filled with compassion. God, give grace to parents and children. Ki lecha Adon haslichot v'rachamim. You are just in the giving and in the taking, and your hand is the essence of all spirit. You never permit the impact we made to fade, so consider us keenly, for you were the master of compassion and forgiveness. Were we to live but a single year, or even 1,000, it would not seem enough. We therefore praise the Judge of truth, who takes but who also gives life. We know that your discretion is beyond us. We know that your word is good, but your judgments at times puzzle us. And though we may brood over harsh realities, Sadiq Ata, we place our trust in your righteousness and accept our lot and our loss, and the love that remains with us forever. Have mercy upon us and strengthen us to maintain our courage at this time of sorrow. Adonai Natan v'Adonai Lakach v'Yishem Adonai Meorach. God who gives and God who takes. And yet we find it within ourselves to continue offering blessing. El Malei Rachamim Shochen Bamromim Hametzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Ashchina B'ma'alot Kedoshim U'Toarim Kezohar Rakim Asirim En Nishmat Yehuda Ben Betzalel V'Rivka Shalach L'olamo Vegan Eden Ve'menuchato Ana Bala Rachamim Astirehu B'Seitek Knafecha L'olamim Utzror B'tzor HaChaim En Nishmato Adonai Hu Nachlato Ve'anuach B'Shalom Al Mishkavo V'nomar Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure, to the soul of Leonard Lurie, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace. We say, Amen. In just a few moments, we'll invite our mourners to recite the Mourner's Kaddish. And them doing so for the first time, we recognize our responsibility towards them to love them and support them in the days and weeks and months and years to come as they continue to grieve, as they continue to move on with their lives, holding this moment. After they recite Kaddish, we'll form two lines, and as our mourners pass through, we'll bestow upon them as many words of love and blessing and support and comfort as we can. Shiva will begin today until 9 with the minyan at 7:30 at 3988 West Meadow Lane in Orange. Also tomorrow from 10 to 4 with the minyan at 2:30, and the same on Sunday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. with minyan at 2:30. Those wishing to make a contribution in Leonard's memory can do so to the Holden Arboretum.
Amen.
The one who makes peace in the heavens, make peace for us here in this world. Bring peace to the soul of Yehuda ben Betzalel v'Rivka. We say, Hamakom yinachem etchem betoch shav le'tzion b'Yerushalayim. The Holy One in this place, within each of us, in every place, should bring you comfort among your family, among your community, among Jews everywhere who know what it is to mourn, who know what it is to grieve, and who commit in this moment to being there for you as you step away from the booth.